Hey guys, what's up? I'm here with my co host Lucy the Cat, and I am Paul. And today on 2D Life, we're going to be talking about high school. Now, I just graduated high school. I graduated that semester because you want to get out of that place. Once you're there 3.5 years, I went elementary school before that. It's a long time to go to school, and you just want to be done. And it feels so good to be out of school when your friends are still in school. Because you can send them texts like middle of the day, just like 12 o'clock, and be like, hey, you want to hang out? Oh, never mind, you're in school. You can just kind of rub it in a little bit. And it's not like I graduated because I was super smart or anything. It's just all you need to do is get your credit hours in so you work slightly harder junior year and then you can graduate early senior year. It's a pretty good trade off. So now I'm just working and trying to save up some money for college because college is a bitch. I mean, sorry, it's an itch. It's something that you cannot scratch. You need a lot of money to afford college, so that's what I'm working on right now. So what I want to do for you guys today is to help you enter high school if you're under the age of high school, or if you've already gone through high school, maybe you'll relate to this a little bit. But I'm going to give you 5 things that I wish I would have known before going into high school. The first one, you can graduate a year early, depending on the high school you go to. My high school wouldn't allow it, but certain high schools, you can graduate in 3 years. That'd be crazy. Like, I would have signed up for that. You start working a year earlier, you can go to college a year earlier. It's just 1 year of your life that isn't wasted in high school. So that's one thing I really. Actually, I don't know if I'm going to give you 5. I'm just going to ramble on for a while. Another thing that I wish I would have known is that it's completely pointless. And I already knew this, but some people go in there and they actually expect to learn stuff. And it's like, no, 75%, actually, I would say about 87% of the time is just wasted. Now, about 50% of the time, it's wasted by just we're not doing anything. And then the remaining whatever percent of time it is, I didn't pay attention in math class. But that amount of time is just the teacher teaching things that either you already learned, because you keep on relearning the same things instead of moving on to new material that would actually be interesting to you. You just keep on repeating the same things, kind of like drill them into your mind. And then if you're not just repeating stuff that you've already learned, it's just the teacher just rambling on about absolutely nothing. And so, it's kind of like people today, they want to get something out of their education, but you have to realize high school isn't as it's not education. It's been made mandatory by the government, and it's just lost its value. It's like a high school degree is worth nothing now. Now you have to go up to a college degree, and now people want to treat a college degree just like high school degree, have the government ensure that everybody gets a college degree. Well, guess what? A college degree is not going to be worth anything anymore because the things that you learn in high school are worthless. You learn some good stuff in college, but when there's too much regulation about, oh, it has to take this much time to graduate, and if you have this degree, it doesn't matter how much you actually learned, it just matters that you've done the time. That's pretty much what high school and what education is now. It's just, oh, if you do the time, then you get the degree, and then you get the benefits of the degree, instead of, no, you're paying for the knowledge that you're gaining through the education, and then you're going to be rewarded in a job based on how much you learned at your education. It's not based on how much you actually learned, it's just based on, and just getting through and getting the degree, which isn't an accomplishment at all. It's like people are celebrating. They celebrate kindergarten graduations now. They celebrate 8th grade graduate. I had an 8th grade graduation party, and it's just a crazy thing to think about. Who the frick who celebrate graduating 8th grade? 8th grade is nothing now. High school, people still celebrate high school diplomas or high school graduations like it's actually something important. It's not. If you graduate high school, you've accomplished nothing because a high school degree means nothing. The only thing that you've learned how to be maybe patient, about how to take people's bullshit, how to just like repeat stuff, how to just repeat whatever's I don't know thrown at you. I guess there's not a lot learned. Another thing that's annoying about high school is it's not the same standard. So for college admission, so if I go to a school and an A in my school is a 96%, which is pretty high compared to like the other schools around me. But when a college looks at my transcript, they're not like, oh, well, his A is a 96, which is different than the 93 that this other school has. They're just looking at, oh, he has this many A's, this many B's, this many C's, instead of this percent, this percent, this percent. So it's not even based on how good you are. It's based on how easy of a school you go to. So if I would have been sent to an easy school, I could have been number one in my class with a higher GPA, and I would have looked better to colleges, even though I wouldn't have been any better of an applicant. And also, it doesn't it doesn't measure anything like creative ability or anything like that, which will actually get you somewhere in life. Okay, like what school teaches us, Google can do now, which is which is pretty like depressing to a certain extent. But if what you're learning you could have a robot do for you, then maybe you should like try to learn some stuff other. You can't teach a robot creativity, or at least creativity to the extent that humans have. You can't create a robot that creates new things, new ideas. Maybe focus on that a little bit more than just repetition and I don't know, just dates without context. And there's just so many things that you learn. Nobody cares about it. It's like they teach you. It's good to have like a basic understanding of history and all these other subjects, but you're never going to get anybody to learn them if there's no motivation to learn them and if they don't want to learn them themselves. I don't think that school can enforce that, and they're obviously not doing it in a very good way. Another thing about education and high school, this has turned from like a five, like I was going to give you 5 things. Now it's just a freaking rant. It's just a full-on education. Freaking high school. I hate high school. I hated middle school even more. Middle school was an absolute waste of my time. The only thing that they taught me was that I was expected to bow to their authority, which they had none. They kept on bringing up verses. They're like, oh, in the Bible it says respect your authority, and I'm like, you're not my authority. I don't know. However you want to interpret that. That pissed them off, but it's true. You're a middle school teacher. Just because you went through 4 years of college education doesn't mean that you have some sort of divine power over me. I don't know what you expect to gain just because you went to college and read a few books. I could do the same thing. A lot of my middle school teachers, I don't got any respect for them. I'm sorry. Some of them I do. Some of them were actually like good people. They had something to teach, but that's not all of them, and you shouldn't base a system pretty much Murphy's Law. If something's if something can go wrong, it will go wrong, and that's with education. You're going to get all the shitty teachers. If you allow shitty teachers to get in, if you allow a pathway for shitty teachers to get in, they're going to get in. That's the plain and simple of it. Another thing that I hate about school is, especially in high school, in middle school, I went to like this podunk, I don't know, like third world school in a village in the middle of a cornfield, and so it wasn't like super technologically advanced. But now that I like in high school and stuff, there were half the class period, like a lot of the class period, in some classes especially, all we would do is watch videos. And so what I'm thinking to myself is, could I not have looked up this video by myself? This goes back to the whole Google thing. Like, honestly, I think online education is gonna revolutionize the education industry. It's gonna change the whole market. I think it's gonna bring more quality education. It's definitely gonna bring some problems with it as well. But what's gonna happen is you're gonna have online teachers. You're gonna sort through to the best of the best teachers, and you're gonna have the best of the best teachers teaching the entire country. Because that's what's happened with every single other industry. You have one company that knows how to do stuff right and knows how to market well and knows how to spread, and then that's going to take over the entire. You don't have local pop manufacturers anymore. You don't have local producers producing this, and then there's another producer for another town. You have everything. It's like consolidating, which I have certain problems with that. But that's what's going to happen to education, and that's what's already happened to education. The only thing is we haven't changed the overall like structure of it. So we have teachers, one teacher teaching the entire country via video. Like if you look at Crash Course, so many teachers use Crash Course, but it's like I have access to all this stuff on my own. I don't need you to search YouTube for me to teach me stuff. I can learn this stuff on my own. I don't need you to type in a search bar, okay? My generation can handle that just fine. We might be a little bit challenged when it comes to fixing cars and all this other stuff, which that only applies to certain people. But we know how to use the internet, okay? We are like the birth child of the internet. Like we're the first generation that's been just completely saturated in it. So I think we can handle like looking up a YouTube video for our education. But what happens is you already have these great teachers and they're spreading their content to the entire country, but then you still have the system which pays the other people who just sit in the classroom searching the YouTube, and you pay them for the education. And so I feel like, of course, there's going to be good teachers, and there's benefits to having teachers in class, and there's more. It's more responsive. You can have them answer your questions and stuff. But for a lot of people, if you're a more independent person, if you're responsible, if you know what you're doing, an online education can be just as good, or in many cases better, than an education that you'd receive at a brick and mortar high school, if that's what you want to call it. Because, honestly, not during the school year, because during the school year, I was going to school and I was working 35, pretty much almost a full-time job, so I didn't have any time to do anything else, really. But during the summer, I was working 2 different jobs, like 60 hours a week. But I feel like I learned more in the summer by just reading a couple books than I ever could in an entire semester of school. Now, there's definitely classes that I enjoyed in school, and so I guess I'll go through a couple of the classes. I've been beaten down on school for this entire video, so I'm going to give you some of like the beneficial classes that I think actually helped. So, let's see, I'll go through my schedule, I guess, last semester, and then I'll go through some classes that I took other years as well. So I took journalism first period, and journalism was actually, like, honestly, it's a pretty good class. I might want to go into journalism in the future, so it's like real-world skills. I'm actually learning something that I might want to do in the future. And so it's kind of the same old thing, like, it's the same format for every single story that you write. But, you know, sometimes it gets interesting. It's a pretty chill class. So I enjoyed that. There's definitely some wasted time, but when you compare it to the other classes, I don't think you could say that we wasted a whole lot of time in that class. Second period, I had peer tutoring. Honestly, I don't know how much peer tutoring I did in that class. I helped when I could, but a lot of the time I was just doing my own thing, doing homework, applying for scholarships. Because honestly, applying for scholarships, it's annoying. I got tired of writing essays. It's just like, I already filled out what activities I did, when I started, and when they ended. I already did this like 20 times for 20 different other scholarships. Why do I have to do it again? It just gets really, really aggravating. And so then third period, I had psychology, which was, I don't know, psychology might just be a bit too touchy-feely for me, because in the class, we talked a lot more about feelings than facts, which I don't really like. It was just, and we ignored the entire history of psychology. He's like, it's a semester class, so we can't cover everything. But, like, we briefly mentioned Freud, and it's like, come on, we got to get more into this. Freud is just, like, a crazy guy. We need to study this guy more. But, no, we skipped over that, and we got more into the other things, which I wasn't as interested with. Another thing, tangent on that, I freaking hate the grading scale, because the grading scale, another thing about the grading scale, I've already mentioned some of the shit that I hate about that, but another thing is it doesn't reward you for taking harder classes. Like, honestly, there's classes where it'd be like, yeah, I think that'd be interesting to learn, like if there was a coding class, or if there was like digital arts or something like that. like that could be useful to me in the future, but I don't have like a lot of experience with technology, so it's like I could attempt to take it, but then it's gonna screw up my GPA, and then I'm gonna look unattractive to colleges and to scholarship committees and all this other stuff. So I'm like, no, I'll just take the safe route and take peer tutoring and journalism and all these other easy classes that I know I'll get an A in. And it's like that doesn't grow you as an individual. That doesn't. But it's like, what are you gonna do? It's like, do I want to grow as an individual possibly, or do I want money for scholarships? And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to go into debt, so I'm just going to go easy route last year and try to learn some stuff on my own, because obviously expecting to learn stuff in school now, if you still, it's a bit crazy to think that you're going to learn something when you go to school. Learn something new every day. That does not apply when you're going to school. Maybe it does in the real world where you're actually learning real life skills, but definitely not in the education system today. So back onto what I was saying about the grading scale. So it doesn't, like, if somebody's taking calculus, let's say they're taking like calculus their senior year, because that's like usually the highest math class that high schools offer. Base as compared to somebody who's taking like algebra 1 as a senior. So if you're taking calculus as a senior or algebra 1 as a senior, colleges often don't look at what classes you're taking. They just look at your GPA as a whole. They look at your GPA, they look at your ACT scores, and then they look at your class rank and your activities. And it's like, it doesn't show near enough to like decide whether you're going to admit somebody and what amount of money they deserve with scholarships and grants and all this other stuff. So I never understood where that was, because it's true, like, there's people who get top of their class that aren't even that smart. They're just tryhards and they take easy classes. So it's like, I had this with my friend, actually Nathaniel, like, his school, like a couple years back. I think there's some controversy because like the head person of his of the class, they got like a 4.0, but they took all easy classes. They took like creative living and all these other like just home ec classes. And it's like, are we really going to reward people for taking just easy classes that can be easily passed, where you don't learn anything useful, or I don't know, it doesn't challenge you in any way? You're just saying to kids, no, you got to stay in your comfort zone. Just do what you have to do to get a good grade. Don't actually take any classes where you're actually going to learn something, because you're rewarded for taking classes that you already know a lot about. So like in government class, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I already know all this stuff. I didn't learn anything in government class. I'm rewarded for taking classes where I don't learn anything, but when I try to learn something new by taking a different class in like a new subject area that I'm not familiar with, then I'm punished for it, which I think is crazy, and I think it's kind of stupid. And so, you know what? That's enough about complaining. I didn't even get through my whole schedule. You don't want to know my schedule, okay? Pretty much the whole thing's super boring. I had study hall, and then I had a PE, and then it was just speech class was pretty useful just because I'm awful at public speaking. So that one I actually, I learned something new. I learned like a skill to a certain extent. I'm still not super great at it, but you know what? Improvements have been made in that area. So now I'm going to circle back. I'm going to talk more about the real reason I hold resentment towards school, which is my young life. You know what? Like when people come out of the closet, people are always like, what happened in your childhood? And this is kind of like, why do you resent school? Something happened in my childhood. I'm just going to tell you straight up. Something awful happened in my childhood. And it's called grade school, middle school, whatever you want to call it. Third through 8th grade education ruined school for me. Actually, more like 5th through 8th grade. Okay, so I was homeschooled till 3rd grade. You can probably tell based on my lack of social skills. But after 3rd grade, I went to a school, and it was about 50 kids. And the teachers there, it was a Dutch Reform school, if that means anything to you. It's just super strict fundamentalism. I don't know, they're just they're very interesting type of people. I guess I would say that. But third and fourth grade, I did really well. I was a good student, and I'm like, you know what? I enjoy this. Like this is different. Like I get a social aspect to it and everything. But then fifth through eighth grade, I'm just like, screw it. Okay, I'm done with this. I'm tired of going to school. Like I'm honestly just done with it. And so I started like just doing stuff to piss off the teachers. Honestly, I don't know who started it first. I'm guessing it was the teachers because I was doing well third and fourth grade, and then fifth grade I'm just like, nah, I'm not having it anymore. Maybe due to part the negative influence that Nathaniel had on me. I'm not for sure, but he was a pretty bad kid third and fourth grade. He got like kicked out of school for a while. So, but like fifth grade I came to realize I'm like, you know what? Middle school doesn't even matter. Like high school, I started like caring about my grades more again. But middle school, I'm like, what college looks at my middle school grades? Like I was thinking of this in fifth and sixth grade. I'm like, why do I even try anymore? Like, what's the point? So I just started goofing off. Um, I don't know. I think the worst grade I got was like a D, and that was in Spanish, and that's because we had an online course, and I don't know. I didn't really like the online course format, so I just and what they said is move at your own pace. So I'm like, yeah, this is bullshit. I don't want to take Spanish. So I just filled in wrong answers, or I just like typed in some letters and then hit submit. And then I got through like the whole course in like a couple weeks. And then they're like, you have an F. Redo this stuff. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I'll do it some, I guess. But I ended up getting like a D in the course. I'm like, how did I not fail that? I honestly didn't even care if I failed it because my parents knew I was at least slightly intelligent, so they would have passed me through to the next grade. So that wasn't a problem. So I'm like, you know what? I don't care. And so in school, they would literally get mad at the stupidest things. Like at the beginning of one year, they like tried to make me sign a contract saying that I'd be good and obedient and all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be good or obedient. So I'm like, teacher, I'm not going to sign this. And so she's like, oh, yeah, you are. And then the principal, he is my guy. Like, I honestly love the principal so much. The principal that they got, he was such a cool person. Like, he actually really liked me. He was the one teacher that liked me in middle school. And so she showed him the contract, and I talked to him like, I don't want to make a promise that I can't keep, and so I'm not going to sign the sheet. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah. And so I didn't sign the sheet. And then another thing, like, I walked on the snow, and you're supposed to bring your snow boots every day to school if you want to walk on the snow. I was literally just walking in the parking lot. There's like a little patch of snow. I was walking in circles, and then like they said something about it, so I'm like, no, you can't control that small little minute section. You already control everything about my life. Don't take that little snow patch from me. But they were trying to, and so I'm like, you know what? I can't do that symbol, sorry. But I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. And so I walked in the snow, and my sister joined me. And so after recess one day, one of the teachers, he was one of the intimidating males at Peary, one of the teachers, he's like, this is also one of the teachers who he later, this was a later story, but he called me off to the side and he's like, why are you always disrespecting the female teachers? Are you just, do you think you can just like, listen to me but not listen to them? I'm like, I don't listen to you either. I don't listen to any of you, okay? It has nothing to do with them being female. It has everything to do with them being teachers. And so, I don't know if I brought up this previous story that happened or not, but I should have. And it was him. He called me and my sister, and my sister's pretty young, and so am I, but like I'm older than her. And so I go into this, and I'm like, I was pretty cocky, I'm just like, I don't care. You can't convince me. I don't know what you're even trying to do. All you're trying to do is subjugate me and force me into like whatever, I don't even know, whatever you believe, whatever your thoughts are on such a constricted, boring freaking life. But he called us to the side, and he's like, oh, so do you guys think that like you can just not follow the rules and everybody else has to follow the rules? And I'm like, no, they don't have to follow the rules either. And apparently he had no way to respond to that. So what did he do instead? He emailed my parents. He pretty much complained to my parents. He's like, oh yeah, your son's being disrespectful and all this. I'm like, no, you're just a whining bitch. Like, honestly, just shut up. I don't care. Honestly, don't care. And it was just a lot of that stuff. Like, I made a paper boat and I taped it to my desk, and then the teacher just repeatedly ripped it off. And I'm like, no, this is my paper boat. You can't just throw it away. And so I kept on making them. And pretty soon, it just became like a symbol of rebellion. And on this one, I think I got the principal on my side too. It's like, can I not have a paper boat? Like, honestly, you control everything else about my life. You control what desk I sit in, what chair I use. You control what books I read. You control what websites I go to for 7 hours every weekday. You control, I don't know, you control such a great percentage of my life. And you send homework with me. Even home isn't a safe place for me anymore, okay, because of school. And it's like, I can't have a boat on my desk. Are you really going to freak out about this? And you could say, are you really going to freak out about this? But it's honestly a question of who's going to have control over my life. Is it going to be them? Are they going to control every single thing about my life? Or am I going to stand up and be like, no, this little thing, I'm going to reserve that as, my own area where I have control. And if you have a problem with that, then you're obviously a control freak. Kind of like I am with this cat. But you know what? This cat, honestly, this cat used to be worse. But I tamed this cat to a certain extent. To a certain extent, at least. But that's part of the reason why I'm scarred from middle school. There's other things, though. I'm going to let this cat go. Say bye to the camera, Lucy. Bye-bye. There's other stories, though, from middle school. And I don't know. I just have so many stories from middle school. I got the first detention at my middle school, which I guess that's something interesting. It's something that everybody goes for. It's a goal that you want to reach in your life. But what happened was we went to a field trip, and we went to a field trip to a high school, which happened to be like, I don't know, it was probably less than a mile away from my house. And it was a play put on by the 8th graders of a different middle school. And so we went there and we watched, and what happened was there was a couple different groups, what we call couples in middle school. So Alex, he was dating someone. Nathaniel, he was dating another person. And I was put in the middle of the couples. I don't know why. But the couples, obviously, they were couples, so they talked and they did all this other stuff. They didn't make out. They didn't do any of that stuff. They were just talking. And apparently they were talking a bit too loud. I was not talking. I was focused on the play. I had no one to talk to. It was two couples and then me in the middle, so I was just sitting, hanging out by myself. I was happy to be by my friends, though. Even if you're not talking to your friends, like, just having them around is a lot better than being off by yourself, sitting alone, because at least you don't look lonely. You might be lonely, like, lonely in the crowd, but at least other people can't be like, haha, he's sitting by himself. So, what happened is the teacher hears talking, and they literally point to the one person not talking, me, and they're like, oh yeah, you go sit down there by yourself by the bus drivers. And, like, the bus driver, like, she's a nice lady and stuff. It's just, I don't know her, and it's super awkward, and it's kind of like, I feel like I'm being punished for something that I didn't do. So I'm like, I don't know, I just had thoughts. The rest of the first half of the play, I just had thoughts running through my mind, and I'm like, oh my goodness, they're making me so angry. And, like, I'm not one for anger issues, really. To a certain extent, maybe when I was younger I did. Not anything too bad, but it was just like, it was something that irked me. I'm like, what? Why are you separating me from my friends? I'm not even the one that was talking. And so I devised a plan. It was a pretty great plan, honestly. I'm going to wait till intermission, and I'm going to go, and I'm going to walk out the doors, and I'm going to run home. I'm like, that'll show them, which it actually did, getting later on in the story. But, so what happened is, intermission broke. Me and my friends and the group that we were with, we went out to, like, the common area that was outside of the auditorium, and the teachers didn't go with us. And so I'm like, hey guys, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go home. And they're like, no, really? And then I just started walking out, and they're like, is he really going to do that? That's what I heard when I was walking out. And so I run home. I run home as fast as I can. I just imagine the teachers like sprinting after me behind me. They didn't do that obviously because they didn't know I was gone yet. But I sprint home and I get home, and it was the last day of the week. It was like Wednesday or Thursday, like before a pretty long weekend. And so my family had planned a trip up to South Dakota. We're from Iowa. So we went up to South Dakota to visit my grandparents, and I'm like, hopefully the school administration cools off a little bit over this long weekend. However, that didn't happen. From the witnesses that were there, my friends, when one of the teachers, the teacher that pissed me off, when she found out about it, her face turned bright red. She was very angry, according to these accounts, and honestly, that made me so happy. I'm like, it's worth it all. It was worth it all along. Like, honestly, it's like tit for tat. Like, you piss me off, I'm gonna piss you off back. And there's very little there's very little that you can do that I care. Like, do what you want to me. Like, what are you gonna do? Oh, you're gonna assign a detention to me. So that's what they ended up doing, which is like crazy detention. Honestly, the detention wasn't even the worst part. Like, they were threatening suspension over me running a couple blocks to my house. And I'm like, honestly, what the frick are you guys thinking? They just didn't know what they were doing, because this is the first detention that had ever been handed out in school history. So they had no, like, punishment process. They were just, I don't know, they were just expecting everybody to fall in line and just listen to whatever they wanted. And so I got back to school, and there were threats, like, I had friends at school, and their parents were like, oh yeah, I don't know if, like, they should hang out with Paul anymore, because Paul is such an awful, evil influence. And I'm like, what the frick? Are you honestly gonna, like, threaten, like, a 8th grader's relationship, like, one of my best relationships, just because I ran home from a field trip? Like, honestly, that's a bit petty. I don't know. That's what I would consider it, at least. So they ended up assigning 8 hours of detention. It was 2 4-hour detentions, so school got over at like 3:20. So I had to stay till 7:20, depending on when my parents, about 7:30, I guess, once my parents got there. I had to stay at school 2 days. I think it was like Thursday and Friday or something. And they didn't have me do like a normal detention. They had me do working. They had me like wash tables and wash desks and stuff. And I'm like, I did the work when they were there, and I'm like, no, if I'm not going to have an overseer, if I'm not that important, that you're at least going to guard me as a high security prisoner, then I'm not going to do any work. Like, honestly, I'm not going to do your work for you just because, oh, I ran home from a field trip. Honestly, tit for tat, I'm going to get you back for this detention, which I did. The amount of pain that I caused that school was equal or greater than the amount of pain that they caused me, which, isn't always a great way to go through life. But I feel like I've forgiven everybody that was involved now, and really now there's no resentment anymore. I still have, like, I guess there's still resentment just based on like the sheer amount of time that I wasted in like the education system, just the sheer amount of like time wasted. Like, that was a long period of my life. Like, I'm 18 now. Like, a fifth of my life was wasted in school. Maybe a sixth. But that's a long time to be in school and to feel like you've accomplished nothing. That's a really long time. And so I get through these detentions. Nothing's really changed. Pretty much the only thing that I learned was that was their line. Apparently running away from a field trip was a major thing to them. So I didn't do that again, but you know what? I continued the resistance all the way up till graduation. And honestly, I'm proud of it. Like, if they're going to waste that much of my time, I can at least have some fun with it, okay? They're always like, when I was doing something on the computer, or when I was looking up something that I was interested in, and they're like, oh, do that on your own time. It's like, it's all my time, okay? Honestly, you don't own me. You don't have any power over me. Quit trying to be control freaks and focus on your own life because you obviously have some problems. So this is way too long of a rant. This is like a 35-minute rant already. So I don't know. I have nothing to leave you guys with. I have a pretty awesome quote. So wait for the quote. It's going to flash up here on the screen. I will see you guys. I'll see you guys later. We're going to be posting another video like Friday or something. So be looking for that. You know, we still have like 1 subscriber, but we're happy that you guys are watching. Have a good day. And goodbye. Actually, no. Now, goodbye.